The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Loaded up. Who will be the sexier football program? Will it be Tennessee or Colorado? Tennessee drops in a couple of rankings, moves up in a couple of rankings. You got a Georgia player suing the University of Florida and another Georgia player arrested. The courts are busy in Athens. And also, the Big Ten surpasses the SEC in revenue earnings. Is that a big deal? We'll discuss with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. A big show on tap. We'll also be joined by a very special guest later in the program to talk about some of your Medicare options. But first, Caleb, how are you, sir? I hope you're doing well as we roll into this Tuesday. A lot of people were confused, thought you had a child over the weekend, but that's not the case. You were just taking a little bit of time. You took one day, and you will take more days when you have a son, right?
That is true, and I do have a son. I am doing well. How are you, Dave?
Fantastic. So that is right around the corner, so we'll all be able to wish Caleb congratulations very soon. A lot to get to today. I want to start off with the Vols post-spring rankings. Little movement. Do you think this is accurate? It is today's tough question, and it's brought to you right now by our good friends at Apex Apparel Group Solutions. So we get to today's tough question. Bam.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Caleb Calhoun, where would you rank the Vols, and where are they ranked by some of our SEC media brethren?
So Tennessee, and again, some of these are analytical and some of these are just analysis based, which are obviously totally different. So going through the last couple of days with some ESPN rankings, a guy we are fans of, Mark Schlabach, came out with his national power rankings. And he moved Tennessee up one spot from number 16 to number 15. But the SP Plus rankings, which are much more analytical, actually dropped Tennessee from number 15 to number 16. This is very middle of the pack for them in the SEC. Schools like Georgia, Texas, Alabama, Ole Miss, LSU, I believe even Missouri and Texas A&M and Oklahoma are all ahead of them, except for Mark Schlabach has Oklahoma behind Tennessee. But the other ones, they do have a bunch of schools ahead of them. So there's a lot of ideas that Tennessee is very middle of the pack right now in the SEC.
Middle of the pack seems like a bit of an insult to me. Is it not to you? Does Tennessee not seem better than that to you?
Yes, the SP Plus rankings, to be fair, they can't factor in certain things analytically. So what the SP Plus rankings do, they factor in recent production, they factor in recent recruiting, and they factor in returning talent. Now, here's the flaw. On the surface, Tennessee does not seem to have a lot of returning talent if you base talent and weight it by position, because obviously Tennessee lost their quarterback. So sure. They are 108th in overall returning talent, 101st on offense. They're also 111th on defense because they lost their entire secondary. So you could say, okay, they lost their entire secondary. They lost their quarterback. They're returning everywhere else, though. And what this analytical data can't quantify is that where they are not returning players, you and I believe they're about to have a massive upgrade at that positions, at least at quarterback. And I think they're going to have an upgraded secondary too.
No, I agree. And I want to make today's tough question. And where would you like the Vols ranked in the preseason? Okay, so this is a little bit different. So, Caleb, let me ask you first, where would you rank the Vols in the preseason, both in respect to the NCAA and SEC?
Me personally, I would rank the Vols number 8. Number 7. Excuse me, number 7. I would put them ahead of Notre Dame, Missouri, Florida State, Texas A&M, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ole Miss and Penn State. And I'd actually put them ahead of Michigan because I think even though Michigan has a lot more first-round talent returning this year, they lost a lot of talent behind them. So I would have Tennessee behind Georgia, Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, Ole Miss, and LSU.
So Travis says I'm ranking them preseason national champions. Sure. Yeah, you can do that. And they might be that. But would you rather go in as a little bit of an underdog, or has that ship sailed, Caleb? I mean, Alabama went into seasons, and Georgia does, as the dominant team. They're picked number 1. Well, they have the talent 1 through 85 to be able to live up to that. I don't think Tennessee has that yet. So would you rather Tennessee be ranked in the AP and coaches poll somewhere else so maybe they could sneak up on somebody like in Oklahoma? Or does that matter? So where would you like the Vols ranked in the preseason? 1 through 5, 33%, 6 through 10, 17%, 11 through 15, 33%, 16 through 20 gets 17%. You can vote on our poll question on the YouTube page. And it's brought to you by our good friend, Don Self. Don Self, State Farm customer service still matters for over 40 years. Don's built his business on taking care of their customers. When claims come, he takes care of that. In the greater Chattanooga area, he's got your back. Collegedale and Ooltewah, donself.net, donself.net. If there's a way that Tennessee could be rated in the low teens or high 20s, I think it would be an advantage for them. I think it was an advantage for them in 2022 when they were the young come-up-and team and they wanted to win, but you didn't know if they could. I think that's the right mentality for a team to have. I think that's the right mentality for its fan base to have. Tennessee, as much as I like their talent, is not to the point where they can be pointed to by every single opponent, Caleb, and expect to win those games. You would like to fly under the radar occasionally if you still can. I don't think after this year with Nico, they're ever going to be able to fly under the radar again. Maybe they can the first half of the season. Is that crazy talk by me?
You make a great point, but I'm going to say this. Teams, I have national championship expectations for Tennessee. Nobody wins a national title flying under the radar. And if that's the only time you're able to win the national title, then you are not built like a championship football team. I'll say this. I think it's a major indictment of the Philip Fulmer era that his one national title came in 98, the 1 year Tennessee was flying under the radar. It's easy to motivate your team when they're underdogs. It's easy to get yourself ready to play. It's harder to do it when you have people circling you. But this is actually, and I just want to get philosophical for a minute. This is why you see a lot of teams that win one championship end up winning 2 or 3 or 4 because
they were that good in the beginning.
One, they were that good in the beginning, but 2, They know how to maintain the level of motivation that they need to maintain, no matter what the issue is. How often did you cover the Fulmer teams, Dave, where they would lose to a top 20 team at home by 40, but then they'd go to a top 5 team on the road and be double-digit underdogs and win? And everybody would be like, "Oh, it was so great they won as a big underdog," but it's like, yeah, but they also lost this other game in a blowout loss at home that they shouldn't have lost. And the mark of a good coach is you've got to keep your kids motivated week in and week out. You've got to have, I don't think Michael Jordan and the Bulls were flying under the radar by their 3rd championship. The Patriots and Tom Brady were never flying under the radar.
No, I don't think so either. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. Get on board now, and we would love to get your take. Where would you like the Vols rated? You make a good point. Football may be the one sport that you can't fly under the radar and win the championship, because at the end, it's mano a mano, and I can out-scheme you a little bit, but I can't out-scheme you in the championship game because surely to goodness my opponents used everything they got, right? So
yeah,
you're right. In basketball, you can be a hot 3-point shooting team. In the NFL, you can, I see what you're saying, but in college,
in the NFL,
yeah, you can get hot in the NFL, but you can't really overcome a strong 85-man roster in college.
No, I mean, college is such a marathon more than it is. Like the NFL is kind of a sprint. If you think about it, the NFL is and I say this with the way the NFL playoffs work. It's almost like you have a 20-mile marathon, and then the last 6 miles, no matter where everybody was started, where everybody is, everybody that like qualifies starts the final 6 miles in the same spot because there's so much parity in the NFL. That's why a lot of people say Eli Manning's the most clutch quarterback ever because of those 2 Super Bowls. And I'm thinking, yeah, but he also got red hot and flew under the radar. What did he actually do when there were expectations on him? Nothing.
By the way, that was a David Tyree catch, not an Eli Manning throw. That throw was into quadruple coverage. He gets no credit for that. I'm just telling you.
But the pass to Mario Manningham in his second Super Bowl is one of the most impressive throws I've ever seen. But
the escape on my play that I was referring to, I'll give him credit for the escape, but that's David Tyree catching the ball against his helmet. That's not how they practiced it all week. I can guarantee you that. I want to remind you. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so just bringing it back to Tennessee, everybody loves to be the underdog with the chip on their shoulder, but in my opinion, wanting to be that is a loser's mentality. I've always believed that. Because if you want to be flying under the radar, that means you're scared of the of teams circling you. And just one quick stat I learned, somebody told me this about Michael Jordan one time. He found ways to motivate himself, but he also found ways to motivate other players because Michael Jordan, he didn't want to be the underdog. He wanted you at your best. So that way, when he beat you, you knew you couldn't do anything to beat him.
Yeah. He's pretty motivated. I don't know that you're going to quite get that. I do think you're going to get a Josh Heupel that his teams are motivated. I thought they fell short last year of what they could have been, but it wasn't because of motivation. It wasn't because of playing hard. Did you think?
No, they played hard the whole time. I think last year's team had moments where when things started to go wrong, they spiraled. And I think that's I think that's partially a problem with Josh Heupel's teams. And this isn't based on his coaching. This is, Dave, when you run so much tempo and everything's so at such a fast pace, that can work against you if things go bad a little bit, because then they can spiral really, really, really fast too. And I think in Josh Heupel's case, they spiraled really, really fast a lot of times.
Very true. Hit that like and subscribe button. It appears as if Stephen Green has just found the channel. Love the channel. Y'all know knowledge of the Vols is incredible. We appreciate that. Be sure and hit the subscribe button. We've been sitting at 4,999 subscribers for a long time, and I would like to hit that 5 mark. So if you got a friend or something, I'm just going to come out and ask. I'm going to say, call your friend now and get them to the 5,000 mark. Because it's just,
I really thought we were going to get it yesterday.
I did too. There's nothing different except for one between 499.9 and 5,000. But it feels a lot different, doesn't it?
It feels so different. It feels so different. I just want to see that 5, guys. Why do you hate us so much? Hit the subscribe.
Go ahead and get us going here. We want to get to 5,000, and then we're going to grow beyond that. We're excited. I've got a meeting this afternoon about some programming in the fall I can't even tell you about, but I'm super excited, and we will get there. I want to remind you, the show represented by our good buddy, Mr. T. Scott Jones at Banks and Jones. Now, to change gears just a little bit, Colorado has sold out its season tickets again. Who's the sexier brand? Is it Colorado? Is it Tennessee? 60 seconds. We dive into that. Banks and Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. By the way, back to our poll question, where would you like the Vols to be ranked in the preseason? 1 through 5 gets 14%, 6 through 10, 38%, 11 through 15, 43%, 16 through 20, 5%. Caleb saying, you can't sneak up and win a national championship. I'll still stand by that. I'd rather sneak up on somebody once, maybe Oklahoma. we have seen teams, Caleb, come from 10 or so, which is about where we would have Tennessee and expect them to be in the AP and coaches poll. So I think that's very possible. But
well, heck, Oklahoma came from number 23 when Josh Heupel was their quarterback.
That's right. Very good. Very good. All right. Now you have Colorado, who I do believe is specifically trying to pick up prospects from certain schools, and Tennessee is one of them. I believe they're looking for similar type athletes in the South, and I believe that Deion Sanders likes what Tennessee runs offensively and believes that they can take players from Tennessee either in recruiting or in just transfer portal and make themselves a better football team. Caleb, we've discussed that before, whether or not Colorado has Tennessee targeted. I believe they've got about a half dozen teams targeted that have had success over time, that are not established enough like a Kirby Smart, that are like a Josh Heupel. They could pull some guys from with a little pizzazz from Deion. The sexier program is just simply going to be Colorado, I'm afraid, until Deion Sanders is gone. So in 2 years, what's the sexier program? Because Tennessee was the sexiest program in 2022. No argument, right?
Right.
23, it was Colorado, even though they were terrible, right? I mean, they got the most talk for number of wins, just like Tennessee the year before. Who's the sexiest program this year? I think Tennessee gets more wins, but Colorado is still going to get a lot of coverage. So where do you stand on that?
So let me set this up real quick for the backdrop. Colorado just sold out its season tickets for the second straight year. This is weeks after Tennessee also sold out its season tickets for the second straight year. No doubt in anybody's mind, Colorado was the sexiest program last year, even at 4-8 with Deion Sanders, because of their 3-0 start, upsetting the defending national champion runner-ups, I guess, in TCU to open the season. There was a lot of pizzazz behind them, a lot of excitement. Deion Sanders fed into that. Dave, you and I have totally had problems with things Deion Sanders has done in the past at certain levels, but the whole making a circus around Colorado, we can't blame him for that, right? He had to do something to be able to recruit at Colorado. And
I totally agree. I almost respect what he's done as a coach as much as a player. And he was one of the best athletes that's ever walked the face of the earth.
Yeah, so he had to do this to keep Colorado in the news, and everybody was covering them. You know, there kind of became a moment where, I mean, don't get me wrong, it got overcovered, but even if it's overcovered, I guess that's good for college football because it draws people in, because you had people asking if Colorado could compete with 2019 LSU. Spoiler alert, they couldn't, they never could have, and they never will be able to under Deion Sanders, because that 2019 LSU team may be the greatest college football team of all time. Okay, so taking all that into account, we look at Tennessee, which, after being the sexiest team in 2022, kind of flew under the radar last year, going 9-4, and wasn't able to run its full offense. So with Colorado taking a step forward, you would assume Colorado would be the sexier team again this year. I think, and I've stood by this, and I'm going to stick with it, Colorado will be the sexier team in September. But over the next 2 years, beginning with the last weekend in September, Tennessee will by far be the sexiest team in college football. Starting with the last week of September, they will be the ones that everybody wants to talk about for the next 2 years. You will see those national ESPN shows that want to do nothing but cover Deion Sanders realize they're getting more interest by covering Tennessee than Colorado. Because I've said this for a while, Josh Heupel has circled that Oklahoma game. He's dotted it. He's ready to bring something out that no one's ready for. They're going to win ugly versus NC State. That's kind of an early prediction I make. They're going to have like a Pittsburgh-type win, and it won't be a sexy win, so you're not going to hear as many teams talk about them. You'll just hear them generate buzz. Then they're going to face Oklahoma in 2 weeks. It's going to be a primetime game on a Saturday. Nico Iamaleava is going to have his Heisman coming out party in that game with Josh Heupel's offense. And from that point on, everybody's going to want to talk about Tennessee, because the Josh Heupel offense, with the level of entertainment that it generates, combined with the winning Tennessee is going to be doing, combined with the quarterback built in a lab to run that offense, is just going to be too much to pass up. So starting in October, from October of this year, to answer your question of who's going to be the sexiest team over the next 2 years, from October of this year until January of 2026, Tennessee will be the sexier team.
That is a prediction. I love that. I don't think it's going to take that long. I really believe that Colorado, that ESPN and the powers that be will take Colorado a little bit more with a grain of salt. And for those of my here, I've got a little issue with my tongue. But I think that Colorado isn't an old story, but it's one that you want to be wary of. You don't want to beat it into the ground because it got beat into the ground last year, and a lot of people resented Colorado. I mean, at some point, Prime has to be smart enough to know that there can be too much PR, and there can. And I feel like he's on the verge of that. So I'm not sure it'll even take that long. I think they'll take a wait and see approach from the beginning, and then Tennessee will take hold of the sexy national team in sometime in late September. But let me open that up. If it's not Colorado and Tennessee, or Tennessee, who might it be that would be the sexy team? I don't know that anybody else is even possible. It can't be an established team. It has to be somebody that's kind of coming out of nowhere, right?
Yeah, because USC should have been the sexiest team in college football the last 2 years. Couldn't we agree on that with Caleb Williams and the Lincoln Riley offense? They should have been the sexiest team in college football. The only one that I think could make a push, I just don't believe in him as a head coach, but Arch Manning with Steve Sarkisian could make a push in a year or so. But, overall, yeah, and to your point about the powers that be at ESPN, there's also, and this is something you talk about, I'll give you credit, because of the SEC's deal with ESPN, there's going to be more of an incentive structure for them to manufacture content related to SEC teams specifically.
Exactly.
And so even if Colorado is a sexier team,
and I told you that.
You did. Now, so I think that many of the sports networks are going to start, you're going to start seeing them by the way, in case you guys don't notice, no matter where the NBA ranks in popularity, and I think it's like the third or fourth most popular pro sport now, ESPN generates so much coverage for it because they have that big deal with the NBA, so they need it to do well. They need the SEC coverage, and so they're going to talk about it non-stop. And so you're going to see more competition for Colorado. Here's where things change, Dave. So Colorado's first game is North Dakota State. Tennessee's is Chattanooga. Here's the point where Tennessee overtakes Colorado by week 2. Colorado visits Nebraska on September the 7th. People think I'm delusional. I actually think Nebraska is going to be a better team this year under Matt Rule.
I don't think that's delusional at all. I think that's reasonable. I'm not going to. As a matter of fact, I don't know Nebraska's roster, so I don't want to make that pick. But Colorado wasn't very good last year. It's not like you have to be, Georgia to be better than Colorado. There are a lot of teams that were better than Colorado.
Yeah, I agree. So I think you could see them lose at Nebraska on September the 7th because there will be a lot of coverage for that game. And then you could see Tennessee beat NC State that same day. And that could be where Tennessee surpasses NC State. I just think that there's going to be, as high as I am on Tennessee, I think there will be some first month growing pains for Tennessee because of the transition to Nigo and because of so many players getting healthy from last year. And that's why I say NC State's going to look like the Pitt game of 2022. I'm just going to predict this now, guys. We're going to come back and talk about the Tennessee-NC State game that Monday or the Saturday after. And all you guys on the message board will be like, oh my gosh, how did we almost lose that game? We should have won that game. And we had 5 opportunities to put it away. It's going to be one of those type of games, Dave, where Tennessee had like 18 chances to put NC State away and couldn't do it, even though I think they're going to win. So I think it'll be that type of thank God we survived. And then I think Oklahoma's going to come 2 weeks later. They're going to go visit Oklahoma, and they're just going to light it up. It will be at Jimmy Hyams on the show when you were on vacation, and I compared it to 1995 when Peyton Manning went to Fayetteville and just absolutely lit up Arkansas. And that's when everybody started talking about Peyton Manning on a national level.
Yep. Now, somebody on the message board said they've hired Warren Sapp. It's a clown show. But he's just a GA. My thing with Warren Sapp is I don't know. When's the last time Warren Sapp has gotten in trouble? It hasn't been that long ago, has it?
No, Warren Sapp was just a dirty player on the field. Like, I mean, his legal troubles have Okay,
Doesn't
to be
that seem
fair,
like a weird guy to ask to be a part of your club? That seems like
he
a move you would make more out of getting more exposure and getting attention than the actual coaching X's and O's, right?
I think it's a favor. Warren Sapp filed for bankruptcy at multiple times, and Warren Sapp has also had a couple legal issues in the 2010s. I think Warren Sapp just needed a little bit of money, and Deion Sanders decided to do him a favor and hire him as a grad assistant.
You could start those two could start a second business on weed up there. It'd be great. Of course, there's probably
I don't think Deion does mind altering stuff, honestly. Alcohol or weed. I could be wrong on that, but I think Deion is one that's super clean on that stuff. Am I right on that? You know more about the combo.
No, that is true. I've watched all the documentaries. He was in that one hotel room with Michael Irvin and a couple of girls and some white stuff. And that was the one time he did it. He's like, I don't want to be around this stuff. And at the time when they both got arrested on the same night, you're thinking, holy Hannah, this is not going to work out well. But Deion was really the straight and clean guy. And Michael Irvin swears that he only did things a couple of times. He just got caught every time. Do you believe that?
No. Also, here's what I think with Michael Irvin. He did say one time, my problem wasn't drugs, it was women, and I like to do things with women that involve drugs sometimes. That's what I remember him saying that. But guys, let me be clear, not Bill Cosby style, guys, not Bill Cosby. He liked when they did coke together and alcohol together and things like that. It wasn't like I like to drug women. That's not what he was trying to say. Deion Sanders probably just liked the women and didn't need the drugs with it.
Sure. Or he liked Deion. Deion seems like the type of guy that could just look at himself in the mirror and get semi-aroused. Don't you think? He's just taking a gander. It's a full length, and he's like, man, I look pretty good. He can be clothed.
Oh, my gosh.
It doesn't have to get weird, Caleb. In 2 minutes, we are going to attack a topic that has to be attacked. The countdown of our volunteers, top balls for the upcoming season. We're going to go linebacker, and actually, we're going to showcase 2 linebackers that should have a huge impact on the Vols this season. Hang with me for 2 minutes, and we'll tell you why you ought to like Keenan and Arian. Stay tuned. More after this. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This is Off the Hook Sports.
All-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge, all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Four Downs brought to you by Dynasty Spas, the most comfortable spas made in the United States of America, right here in East Tennessee. Drop in for the all-new showroom in Athens. Dynasty Spas, perfect for all four seasons. Four Downs, presented by Off the Hook Sports.
So let's get to Keenan Pili. Where do we have him on our volunteer countdown, Caleb?
Coming off a season-ending injury in the opener of last year against Virginia, you would think Keenan Pili would be kind of a wait-and-see guy. But we have him all the way at number 4 on our most important Vols entering the 2024 season. And I know people think that's crazy, but he was stepping up as a leader for them last year, and his absence caused a lot of issues for Tennessee, particularly when they got to the SEC, because as hard of a worker as Elijah Herring was and as smart of a player as he was, his lateral quickness just wasn't there.
Nope, agreed. Coop, what do people need to do if they want to be a part of the program?
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Coop, it's Four Downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Coop here. First down.
Thank you, Coop. First down is, where does the Keenan Pili injury rank among the setbacks that Tennessee suffered last year?
Second biggest. I think that behind Cooper Mays in the first 5 games.
Okay. All right.
Just because I can say definitively that Tennessee beats Florida if Cooper Mays is healthy. I can say that very safely.
Okay. Well, then I thought you were going to say Brew. I would rank them in order of you don't want to lose them. Cooper, Keenan, Brew. Do you agree with that?
Cooper, Keenan, Brew. Yes, I absolutely agree with that fully.
I mean, and those, other than Nico, which is the quarterback, those might be the top 3 guys on the team.
You're right.
And we're doing the countdown, but as far as their backups,
yes, you're right, because it's a combination of their talent and how crucial they are. That's why we had Brew down at number 7 or number 8, because there's so many receivers on the roster that I think Tennessee could replace them. I mean, Tennessee lost Brew McCoy and Dante Thornton last year, and Ramel Keaton played hurt. By the way, maybe we owe Joe Milton a bit of an apology. It's not like he ever got really the full offense together. I'm naming their top 3 receivers were all hurt at times. 2 went down for the season. Plus his center was out for the first 5 games.
Yeah, that's fair. But you were the one that was hard on Joe Milton the whole year, not me.
Oh yeah, you're right, Dave.
Second down, Coop. All right. Why do we not have Arian Carter on the list? I'll give you my answer. I think that he has incredible upside. I just haven't seen enough. And he was asked to play out of position at the mic for a little bit last year. And I talk to people behind the scenes that think he's incredible, which is why I think he should be considered for this list. But I don't know 100% that he is the impact linebacker that people tell me that he is. So that's why he's not on our top 10 list.
To be on this list, you have to be one thing. A superstar who has already proven enough that you'll be a superstar, a potential superstar who has already proven enough. I love Arian Carter, but he hasn't proven enough yet because he wasn't starting last year. Or you have to be playing at such an important position or such an important role that your value outweighs a lot. Keenan Pili has proven himself to a degree by what he did at BYU, but he's also playing a very important role as a middle linebacker. He's the quarterback of the defense. And we saw a lot of issues facing middle linebacker last year when he went down. Now, Jeremiah Thielander ended up emerging as the backup, kind of in place of Elijah Herring towards the end of the year. But it was very clear Keenan Pili was missed. And I think with Arian Carter, you're just seeing potential star power that's lost if he goes down. But you still see a guy like Thielander, you can move over there. You see a guy like Caleb Perry, you can move in at outside linebacker. So you have options, and you don't have any proof that you definitively have a big loss if he goes down. Keenan Pili, despite his injury and only playing 1 game for the Vols so far, you know you have a definitive big loss if he goes down because you saw what happened to Tennessee at middle linebacker last year when he went down.
All right, Coop, what down?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
Thank you, Coop. Keenan Pili can make all SEC this year. Yay or nay?
Yes, absolutely. He can make all SEC this year.
Man, I think it's too much politics. I don't think he has a chance because there will be another middle linebacker. I don't know which one it is right off the top of my head. that will get the preseason voting. And to your point, you can pile up some tackle sacks. I just don't know if you can beat all SEC in one season.
Here's the underrated part about Keenan Peely when he's out there. And this is something that Tennessee hasn't had at a middle linebacker yet. He's the first middle linebacker that can truly drop back in coverage and doesn't fall out of position. Remember Jeremy Banks, Dave, how lost Jeremy Banks looked in the passing game a lot of times when he was at linebacker for Tennessee? I think Keenan Peely, because of that, you might see more than just tackles or, tackles for loss or those random stats for linebackers. You might see a couple of interceptions, 2 or 3. And that's where you get to see things change.
I wonder, can you look this up for me? Was Al Wilson all SEC in 97? Not 98, but 97. Because that would have been his first year of kind of exploding on, and that would have been his second year, right?
Yes, he was all SEC, but you got to remember he was an outside linebacker that year because they were having Leonard Little play middle linebacker.
Okay. It's easier to make all SEC at outside because you can make those fantastic game flipping plays. So maybe that's a fact.
Also
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Also, the funny thing about Al Wilson, as we're talking about him just real quick, it's funny because he moved over to middle linebacker, and Al Wilson kind of became the standard for middle linebacker because you wanted them quicker and able to read coverages better. But man, he was fast like an outside linebacker, wasn't he? I mean, he
just happened to have Raynaud Thompson and Eric Westmoreland, who were very good outside linebackers as well. Raynaud Thompson was incredibly fast because he was incredibly light. And boy, he ran into some things so hard during practice back then that I really thought that maybe he should be talked into not playing football. That guy had, for his size speed ratio, he would run into a brick wall and it would not bother him at all. And he'd bounce up and just keep going. Something wasn't wired right. And I mean it as a positive, as a compliment. And you saw that he played in the NFL and he was still light. He was like 220 playing linebacker in the NFL, making it for the Cardinals. What down are we on, Coop? What down are we on, Caleb? Who's Coop? What?
Fourth.
All right.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
All right. Arian Carter can be an all SEC player.
Yes, he absolutely has all SEC potential. And I think that's kind of an underrated part about this. I think Aaron Beasley would have been all SEC last year if he wasn't dealing with issues with lack of help at the middle linebacker spot. Again, I feel so guilty saying that because I genuinely like Elijah Herring, the person. I do. And I don't think he can't play football, but it just didn't work out with what Tennessee needed him to do. And that held back Aaron Beasley. But if you remember, everybody's favorite person in the world, I believe, Jeremy Banks, was considered preseason all SEC going into 2022, I want to say. And then maybe would have gotten all SEC had the whole thing that destroyed the situation not happened. So I think Arian Carter could be all SEC linebacker, particularly if Keenan Peely is able to do what we expect him to be able to do.
Question on the message board, and that was Al and Eric played running back in high school. Yes, and somebody else you might not know about that played linebacker for Tennessee. I'll tell you who that was in 60 seconds. 4 downs brought to you by Dynasty Pools and Spas.
Experience it all at Varner Ford.
Dynasty Pools and Spas. The best thing about Dynasty Pools and Spas is that they've got it all taken care of. What does that mean? Well, you stop by their showroom and check out their fantastic selection of top-notch spas in that showroom in Athens. Make your pick and get ready because Dynasty Pools and Spas delivers within 125 miles of that location in Athens, that fantastic showroom. They've got the cover lift, steps, chemicals, and everything you need. Delivery at no extra charge. They're just down the road in Athens. You pick the spa you want, and it'll be there for you. Oftentimes discounted with military and first responders discounts. Also blemish models, or just mention Off the Hook Sports. That's Off the Hook Sports for $500 off. There's a discount for you on spas made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas also has the best chemicals for you and your spa and your pool. No fillers, just the chemicals made right here in East Tennessee. Support local. Dynasty Pools and Spas, $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. $500 off if you mention Off the Hook Sports. Dynasty Pools and Spas, dynastypoolsandspas.com. So Al and Eric did play running back. Dominique Stevenson, who filled in for Al when Al went on to the NFL, played running back as well. Fred White played quarterback in high school. I'm sure Deion Grant could play wide receiver. How about that group if they just intercepted the ball, just stopped and ran an offensive play?
Some schoolyard football right there.
Yeah, it would work. Just take a knee and go at it. Fred could play quarterback. He could do it.
That would be hilarious. Oh my gosh. I mean, I think Tennessee, they felt their defense was so good that year that they probably could have Red Boy, Water Boy style, just take a knee 3 times and punt, right? And be like, how you like my new offense?
What do you think about Waterboy 2? Are you for that or no?
Oh, it's Happy Gilmore 2 that's coming out, not Waterboy 2.
Oh, Happy Gilmore 2. What do you think about that?
I think it's stupid. I never like comedy sequels like this. Honestly, they're never good.
I watched Dumb and Dumber last night. Much to Shanda's dismay, she wasn't real happy about that.
What the? What was he thinking? Release the hounds. The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
We've never done this before, but we're going to do 2 What the H's. The first one is surely, Caleb, there's not another Georgia receiver or another Georgia football player arrested. That can't be the case, and surely it has nothing to do with a car, right?
It has something to do with the car, and it happened again. So,
this is troublesome. How bad is the latest one?
Georgia freshman wide receiver Sokovie White, who was a 4-star early enrollee in the class this year. He's an in-state guy out of Cartersville, Georgia. He was arrested Saturday morning, it turned out, on a charge of reckless driving and driving down a one-way roadway. According to the Athens Clark County Police jail log, he was arrested at 3:04 a.m. and released an hour later on a $26 bond. Now, further details of White's arrest are not notable, but if it's reckless driving, if it's 3:04 in the morning and you're on a one-way road, I feel like you were doing something stupid, right?
Yeah, you're either drunk or you were doing something really, really stupid. And by the way, I don't know which report you're looking at, but I see this CBS report that also references Travis Etienne Jr., a highly billed transfer from Florida who you know about, arrested in March for driving under the influence, reckless driving, and 2 misdemeanor charges. I have to be honest with you. They've had so many, that one slipped under the radar. But that's troublesome that he would show up and already find the ire of the law. I mean, is this a real problem? Yes. We told you this a year ago. Georgia has a problem for a couple of different reasons. Number one, like every other school, their players, and I worry about this for Tennessee too, to be real honest with you, because I know their players are buying $250,000 cars. I know it. I know that it's all legal now, so you don't get busted for it. But I also know the dangers being an older man than a younger kid, practically, that there's some roads you shouldn't go too fast on. I worry about this as a whole. I think Georgia gets the most spotlight, but there's no denying that they've had more issues than anybody else, right? I mean, I guess the question is, did Georgia have a problem specific to Georgia? And I say absolutely yes. I think they do, even if Tennessee were to get a couple of tickets here in the next couple of days. I think Georgia's had this ongoing, the road between Athens and Atlanta, it's like it was made to be a drag racing road. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but Kirby Smart should not have played Travis Etienne in the spring game. That he got arrested before. That was absolutely ridiculous. How you would play him in that game sends the wrong message. For the first time, all these incidents, I am of the mindset that Kirby Smart is going to lose this team. I don't know if it happens this year, next year, or 3 years. But when I've been around, when discipline starts to slide, it slides in many different areas, and it's nearly impossible to get back. So for the first time, I'm willing to say I think the Georgia thing with Kirby Smart ends poorly from a lack of discipline. Now, you've got to be pretty bad to get fired after 2 national championships. I realize that. But I think it ends in a not great way. A not great way could also be a very serious traffic accident, which I'm afraid might be right around the corner. Caleb?
Well, I mean, that's already happened, didn't it, with Jalen Carter?
Yeah, or another one. Maybe 2 surely would push him to do something. Yes. No, one has happened. You're right.
Yes. And so Kirby Smart in March came out and said, I can only speak for my university, but I think we do it better than anybody in the country when it comes to educating his team on the dangers of speeding. That's what he said. This is a level of brazenness that even Philip Fulmer didn't have in the 2000s. Fulmer would at least come out and be like, we got some immature players. They need to get their act together, yada, yada, yada. I'm going to tell you guys what has happened with Georgia. And by the way, I'm going to have a column coming up very soon about how if you really look at their track records, Kirby Smart is not that much better than Mark Richt. Just things have played out for him a little bit better. One of the biggest differences between Georgia under Kirby and Georgia under Mark Richt, and if you wonder why they've taken that next step, Georgia, and this is a known thing, guys, they were a legit model of integrity under Mark Richt for 16 years. And not just Mark Richt, but for long before that, for decades. I can't say decades. I don't know about the Vince Dooley years in the 80s or 70s, but I can say like between Vince Dooley and Kirby Smart, they had really high standards beyond what other SEC programs had. And I do think with Mark Richt, that's what kept Mark Richt from getting over the hump at Georgia to try to win a title, was they were a lot stricter with their standards on whether or not players could play, if they were going to suspend players. I mean, they were about to suspend Todd Gurley for the year, remember, in 2014 over some random accusation about selling some memorabilia?
I do. I remember I think he was in passenger side of a car. And he autographed the memorabilia. Yeah, it was way different. The part with Kirby Smart, if I'm a Georgia fan, that frustrates me is some of his public comments. You are potentially endangering people in Athens, but his comments are more along the lines of, we do it better than anybody in college football when it comes to educating players about speeding. Well, that's not getting it done. It's got to be a little bit more. And don't think for a second that something fiery and crazy can't happen. Okay, because things happen all the time. We didn't know about how much trouble, say Lane Kiffin was in. Give me some other examples of guys that were fired kind of surprisingly. It would take something big. It would take something.
Well, he wouldn't get fired. I'll tell you what he would do. He would bolt and try his hand at the NFL. He'd decide he wants to try the NFL right before things collapse. He would pull an Urban Meyer and run before it came back on him. And that's what Kirby Smart would do. Look, this is why I was getting to Kirby Smart with Georgia with Mark Richt. I think Georgia really did get sick of being the only program in the SEC outside of Vanderbilt to hold some sort of integrity standards. And when they hired Kirby Smart at the same time, they said, you know what? Forget it. We're going to do a 180 and not care at all. And the way Kirby Smart defends them publicly like that, I don't care what he says to them privately. I'm about to be a parent. Dave, I know you're a parent. I was a kid growing up. I got to be honest. Even if my parents told me something privately, like you shouldn't do this, if I saw them publicly defend me to a bunch of other people, I would think it's okay for me to do it then.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Well, and take it a step further. With Kirby Smart not having the university call him out, is he like, well, I guess this is okay. I can just say we do everything we can. We're doing everything possible. It just happens. I mean, does he think the same thing on a higher level?
It's possible. And then there's going to come a moment where, and by the way, this stuff, we're starting with reckless driving and putting people in danger. Like with Fulmer, it started with little things. It started with I'm just going to say it, lack of discipline. And I love these two guys. Letting John Henderson and Travis Stevens fly to the award ceremony 2 days before the SEC championship game and saying, no, not saying you guys have a job to do in this SEC title game. You can't go to the award shows in New York. Sorry, we got to beat LSU. And guess what? Travis Stevens fumbled against LSU in that game. Maybe because Fulmer let him fly to New York to try to accept an award that he didn't even get, the Doak Walker Award. Okay, that happens. Then it goes to not making James Banks practice. Then it goes to... and then it spirals into 17 people getting arrested in one offseason. At which point Fulmer loses his temper, and I know this story, is throwing water bottles and water coolers in a team meeting because he's so angry about one more arrest. And everybody at that point, from my understanding, and I remember talking to players, Dave, no one took him seriously when he lost his temper at that point because he had let so much happen before then that people kind of found it funny.
Well, you can't get it back. You can't get discipline back. And you'll know that as a parent. I mean, you can as a parent because you're around them 24/7. But if you let discipline go for a little while, it's going to take a few months to get it back with your kid. And your kid's with you 24/7. With another grown man, if you let him leave early from work, if you let him take extra long breaks and do all those things, and say you shouldn't do that, and then you go tell somebody else in front of everybody what a great job you're doing, would you even think about changing your ways? I'd go ahead and live it up. I mean, that's what these guys are doing now. They're able to drive as fast as they want to, get the cars they want to, and I think if I'm Kirby Smart, I'm concerned about this whole situation because you had David Green, quarterback. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't David Green. Quarterback there now. Name. Carson Beck. Carson Beck text out his Lambo. Wouldn't you like the quarterback to be a little bit more of a leader and just, I don't know, a Ford Bronco or something? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, because, no, there's never been a football athlete involved in criminal stuff that involves a Ford Bronco. That's never happened before.
The new Broncos, though, are really nice. And you can pick one up at our good friend Varner Ford. We'll be right back as coming up.
That's the best ironic, Freudian slip.
Yes.
Ford Bronco, the model of discipline for football players.
Yes, he is the model of discipline at Varner Ford. So check him out. And coming up, I never thought I'd say this, but one football player is actually suing another football program in the SEC. Yes, that's happening. In 2 minutes with Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
5th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Newbert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Newbert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Experience it all at Varner Ford in Clinton. Need a quick fix or maintenance? Visit our Quick Lane Tire and Auto Center. Keep your Ford running smoothly with the experts in our service department. Ready for your next Ford? Our sales team is here to guide you to this 24 Ford Escape all-wheel drive, $31,954. 24 Ford Edge all-wheel drive, $37,975. 24 F-250 4x4 Crew Cab, $54,760. Local you trust, experience you can afford. Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Conversation breaking out on the message board about linebackers playing running back in high school. I was just thinking to myself, why does that not happen more often? I think it's just because high school football is more specialized now. I think you're either deemed a linebacker
more often.
Not as often as it did at Tennessee. Now, Tennessee,
I just feel
their
like
entire
a lot of linebackers played running back in college.
It doesn't seem to be happening as often. It seems like you recruit a guy to play running back or you recruit a guy to play linebacker. Now, if you recruit a guy to play running back, you tend to keep your promise. They were lied to a lot back then. they were going to move to linebacker whether they knew it or not. I just think it's tougher to keep a secret, and I think high school football is more specialized. I think they want one guy to play one position on both sides of the ball. They don't necessarily want one guy to play on both.
I mean, we just talked about him, but if you go to Arian Carter's football highlights at Smyrna, he played a lot of running back at Smyrna when he was coming out.
But listed as running back by recruits.
You don't see a lot of guys listed as running back, but I'm not, I got to go back to recruiting back in 1995 for Al Wilson. I don't think Al Wilson was listed as a running back.
That's fair. He may have just been listed as a dude.
Yeah. Cedric Wilson played quarterback in high school, but I think everybody knew he was going to Tennessee to play receiver, right?
Yes. Jaden Rashada has decided to sue the University of Florida, and I am now a Jaden Rashada fan because he's suing Florida, not because they should get sued, but because they have to get sued. They absolutely threw off a young man's 18-year-old football career. He had to go to Arizona. He had to now come back to Georgia. So good for you, Jaden Rashada. I say sue Florida because you showed up on campus and they didn't have your NIL money ready. This stuff has repercussions, and I'm glad that Florida, whether it's that school or another school, I don't care. But I'm glad they're paying the price for the repercussions. You can't, as the adult in the room, you absolutely cannot mislead a kid or an investor or anything like that and get him on campus and then try to lock him in. What happened if Jaden Rashada spent the night, which used to be, I know this because of the Lane Kiffin leaving in the middle of the night, if you spent the night on campus, that was considered enrollment. What happened if Jaden Rashada had spent the night in Florida? Would he be stuck there? No, he could transfer immediately. But still, you had to go to Arizona. I thought it was dastardly what they did to Jaden Rashada, and I'm glad he's suing them. I've got no issue with that whatsoever, Caleb.
Yeah, so let me be fair and they wouldn't be able to come at us because they wouldn't be able to prove harm on this. But I just want to clarify real quick. He's suing Billy Napier and a big-time Gator booster and others, according to ESPN, which I think by association is safe to say Florida. But because
I actually like that he's picked out specific people.
I do too. So he's claiming they defrauded him out of millions of dollars by backing out of a promised agreement, which is probably true. He probably, even if he couldn't have made the $13.85 million at Florida, he probably had an NIL offer somewhere else that he turned down that he then couldn't get because he committed to Florida and then he was forced to back out. So that, I agree. I think that's a big part of where the lawsuit comes. And look, this is a great step to help kind of set more standards for NIL. I think we've talked about this for a while. If you let the NIL be the Wild West, I think naturally court cases and legal issues will set guardrails on their own, won't they? Eventually, though, it'll work its way out.
Yes.
And
kind of already has. You're paying the players to return more than you're paying the players to enroll initially.
Yes, exactly. So I think there's a lot at stake here. Now, the question becomes, what stands out to me is Billy Napier being sued. I felt Billy Napier was kind of like, who was the SMU head coach in the 80s? Was it Bobby Collins? Was that his name? That came from Mississippi? I thought he was just a guy wanted to coach football and just wasn't even paying attention to the NIL stuff and was just bumbling and didn't even know. But if Billy Napier's on the lawsuit, Rashada suggesting Napier was part of lying to him. I don't know if Napier was lied to himself, but this could create turmoil for a lot of reasons. Because, Dave, think about this. If this is personal lawsuits against Napier and the booster and others, they're all going to start flipping on each other, aren't they? They're going to try to make the other person responsible. At which point you are going to have, do you really want the head coach and a booster or a couple of major boosters fighting over who should be on the hook to pay out a lawsuit? That's a dangerous situation to be in.
And it could be dangerous to Billy Napier. What if he mishandled this? And let's say he wins 7-8 games this year, which would probably be, let's retain Billy Napier, right?
Yes, probably.
Probably. 7-8, 8-9, yes. Well, if you're close to firing him and he's gotten sued by another player and you find out he's mishandled it, that would be the extra shove over the edge that would have
even if he hasn't mishandled, if the booster says, if you don't fire him, you can kiss my money goodbye.
Oh, that's which could happen.
Yeah, and so that's where,
So you're saying the booster that was providing the money doesn't want to get burned, so he would burn Billy Napier because he knows that he's not a very good coach.
And Napier would burn the booster. I just think in a petty squabble, somebody's got to be on the hook for who defrauded Jaden Rashada. And whoever's on the hook is the one who has to pay up. And who's going to want to pay up on this? So they're going to fight each other over it because in court, they're going to throw each other under the bus. It's like criminal cases. If you get caught, you rat out the other guy so you don't get in trouble. So, that's where this situation's at. It leads me to believe this. I'm going to be honest, Dave. We just talked about them. What are the chances Georgia was behind this? Or not behind it, but encouraged Jaden Rashada to do it?
I would encourage him to do it.
I agree. Because he didn't do it when he was at Arizona State last year. Somebody at Georgia got in his ear and is pushing this to wreck Florida.
Yeah. Well, it's your job to look out for the kid. I mean, Caleb, you and I work together. If I'd pull you aside and say, if that guy did you wrong, if that builder did you wrong, go sue him, Caleb, because I'm looking out for you. You're the one I care about. Same thing now with Etienne, with Rashada, plus you can hurt Florida as well. So, yeah, I think Georgia probably incentivized them, probably suggested that Rashada sue Florida. That wouldn't surprise me at all. Why would Arizona do it? I mean, they've got everything they can possibly manage to put together a football program. I don't think they're really worried about it. However, Georgia has the time to do some extra goofy stuff. And he's not playing. So if he has to miss a meeting to go meet with his lawyer, you let him do that. I know it sounds like I'm going overboard a little bit, Caleb, but your job is to protect the young man. So I have no problem with him suing the University of Florida at Georgia's behest. Zero problem. As a matter of fact, I love it. What do you think on the message board? Go ahead, Caleb.
I think George is altruistic. I don't think George is altruistic on this. I think it's very good for them to wreck Florida, the program, and they would love that long term because they know they're going to be a permanent rival, and they just smell blood and don't. That might, Dave, I'm going to go that out here. What if that's why they got Jaden Rashada in the first place? So they could just encourage him to do this lawsuit, and they could totally wreck Florida in the process. I think this is so. Now here's the other part of it. Okay, here's one for you. What if Jaden Rashada was encouraged by Florida to sue the booster Napier, and then they all hold on, let me hear me out. Gosh. They all flip on Napier, and then Florida uses that as a reason to terminate Napier's contract for cause, where they can fire him without a buyout.
Well, nothing would surprise me. I guess that's possible. I would certainly suggest that he goes to Banks and Jones, the show represented by Banks and Jones. He'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney, play to win. BanksandJones.com, BanksandJones.com. Ding, ding, ding. Exactly right. The Smoky Mountain Red. I don't think Rashada played. Travis asked, was Arizona any good with Rashada?
Arizona State,
excuse me. I don't think that he played that much with him, did he?
No, he got hurt. He got hurt. All I'm asking is this. Do we think this was Jaden Rashada's idea, or do we think that some school for a nefarious motive was behind this idea? And I think we both agree some school for a nefarious motive, whether it be Georgia or Florida, was behind this idea.
I don't think it was Florida. Does anybody think it could be Florida? I'm just curious.
What if they all go testify and stay and I mean, what if they all say we're in this together? Let's all throw Billy Napier under the bus. And they all say Billy Napier lied to Jaden Rashada. And then it gets confirmed in court. And then Billy Napier's on the hook. And then they, in turn, can fire Billy Napier for cause. Which, by the way, I don't think Napier was the one who lied. So it'd be really unfair to him, honestly.
I think Smoky Mountain Red nailed it. And what we love about this program in our community is that we admit that we're not right all the time. Smoky Mountain Red said Napier is a train wreck of a coach, and we dodged a bullet with not getting Napier. I was a fan of him when we were looking. Is Napier worse than Derek Dooley? Is Napier worse than Butch Jones? Is Napier worse than Jeremy Pruitt?
Okay, they're all bad for different reasons. I have no questions about Napier knowing ball. I think he does know ball to a certain degree. I think Napier, he's a poor CEO. You talked about this. He has way too many cooks in the kitchen trying to handle things and is creating too many mistakes. I think he's bad in a different way from the rest of them. They were all bad in their own ways. But in a similar fashion to Dooley, Napier's also at a program that has completely lost its way in terms of competence from the administration. I mean, this whole Jaden Rashada thing alone is proof that there is an incompetent issue at the University of Florida right now that Napier can't really fix. Now, that doesn't mean he has to have so many analysts and he doesn't know what they're doing, but so I think Napier's smart. I think the whole detail thing that you talk about that everybody laughs at, I think that's his problem. He's way too focused on details. And he's trying to cover so many things and he makes mistakes. So Napier kind of reminds me of a Derek Dooley in that way, where I think their CEO methods are just causing issues, but they're at it. You know what I mean? They don't remind me of Butch Jones, who was just downright stupid. And
rank them. Rank the four coaches: Pruitt, Napier, Dooley, and Butch Jones. Let's rank them right now. Worst coaches in the Tennessee-Florida rivalry. We can go ahead and throw a Zook in there if we want to. But
what about Jim McElwain?
Jim McElwain deserves to be up there. But just compared to those four, I think he's a better coach than Pruitt. I think he's a worse coach than Butch Jones, who I don't like on a personal level for a lot of reasons. He never did anything to me personally, but just the way he treats people, I'm not a big fan of. I would say Butch Jones is slightly better, and I would say that Derek Dooley is slightly better.
I think from knowing ball, just being ball guys, Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt are probably at the top of the list, right? Just being ball guys. And
see, Jeremy Pruitt would be like an A+ to me if he could be the defensive coordinator, not the head coach.
That's why he's a ball guy. Here's what I mean with that. Say what you want about Butch Jones and Jeremy Pruitt, but let's just say this much in their favor. They knew what they wanted to run, didn't they? They weren't like just shuffling to find staff to run whatever they actually had. Butch Jones knew he wanted to run the zone read smash mouth spread offense, didn't he? And Jeremy Pruitt knew he wanted to run a 4-3-3-4 multiple defense that focuses on the. I mean, they knew what schemes they wanted to run. That counts for something. Derek Dooley and Billy Napier are just CEOs that are like, I remember when I will never forget the press conference, and it made me think Derek Dooley didn't know ball. You were at that introductory press conference, remember, Dave? And
I remember all those.
And he kept asking about his styles and things he believed, and he kept saying, "Well, if you're going to be good, you got to be multiple. You got to be good at everything." It's like, okay, but what does that mean for you? Like, do you know football?
Please, what do you take pride in? Give me, like, if I say, what do you take pride in? And Caleb says, well, I have to take pride in everything. I take pride in keeping my car oil right and the right shirt and iron clothes. Nobody's good at everything.
No, No, and you remember him saying that, right? And I'm guaranteed you were probably questioning this guy doesn't know ball, right? When you were seeing that.
Yes, I didn't. I was questioning who the guy was. I mean, I heard his name probably 48 hours before he was actually hired. I mean, it was not a long time. It may have been 36 hours, actually. Yes,
Yeah.
because I had a date night. You'll appreciate that. I had a date night with my wife, and they called a press conference, and we had to go in the Peyton Manning locker room to cover his press conference. My wife was there at the press conference as a date. That was what you get when you date Dave Hooker.
And that's actually pretty awesome. And it was so smug though, because people do this in politics, they do this in sports, they do this everywhere. You know what people do that is so smug that just angers the heck out of me, Dave? When they don't know something, they act like your question is too specific and doesn't matter. You ever notice that? So like you ask somebody a football, like you asked Eric Dooley, like, what style of defense do you want to play? 4-3 or 3-4? And I remember he's like, well, it doesn't really matter. 3-4, 4-3. There's a lot of ways to be good. I'm like, you're making me sound like that's not a legitimate question. When the truth is you just don't know what you want to run on defense. And
I'll defend him on that one thing, because that's whether or not your hands down. So
that didn't exist in 2010.
Okay. The edge, capital EDGE, didn't exist back then. It probably didn't. That's early.
That was a Jeremy Pruitt idea in 2015, 2014, 2013 at Florida State.
Yeah, I remember when he showed us that. He said it really doesn't matter how you come off the edge with your hands down. I was like, wow, how did I not think of that until I was 45
It does change though how you're going to align your defensive linemen, because you have like nowadays you used to have two like true edge rushers lined up front and then two tackles, but now you'll have like a nose tackle and then two defensive linemen who are like kind of the size of a defensive tackle but agile like an end. So it's changed that to a degree. But yeah, Dooley was. I say this out loud. I've always been more annoyed by Butch, but I know people who covered everybody, and Dooley bothered them the most because he was so smug to you guys in the media day when y'all were covering them at the time. He acted like he was so much smarter than you guys and just was so like shaming, but it was so annoying. But I still, to me, Butch Jones was always, even though I said, I think on a general sense of being a ball guy, he was a better coach. The basic in-game mistakes were at a level of stupidity that I don't think I've ever seen a coach make with Butch Jones. Like,
well,
I don't think anybody could be that dumb.
I mean, once you say it, to my knowledge, Billy Napier has never run 8 defensive tackles onto the field at LSU.
But that, to be fair, I couldn't put that on Dooley. That was the defensive line coach who Dooley was trusting to run the right.
That's still on Dooley. He hired a guy who'd never coached college football.
That's true, but you know, even if you do that, you probably think, well, the guy will at least know how many defensive linemen to run onto the field at a time. I mean, but I'm talking about
substitution patterns can be a little bit more complicated than you think.
I'm talking about decisions that came straight from the head coach. Like, for instance, 9 seconds on the clock, no timeouts. Butch Jones is on defense, just trying to run out the clock, and he takes a timeout. Okay, I'm talking about scores a touchdown to go up 26-14 with 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and goes, "Oh, I didn't even think about the fact I should go for 2." And then says in the press conference, "Well, we have a chart that tells you when to go for 2." What chart tells you not to go for 2 in that moment when you're up 26-14 with 5 minutes to go in a game? I mean, Butch made the decisions that fall squarely on the head coach. The substitutions, Dooley gets no pass for that, but you could put that on the assistants. Butch made the mistakes that, I'll say it, Les Miles made. And Les Miles just got lucky as heck making them. Because, by the way, that 8-man running 8 defensive linemen, Dave, that nobody saved Les Miles' job for 3 years more than Chuck Smith. Because I guarantee you, if Tennessee just lets LSU implode right there, remember that play when LSU, they run a play, they don't get the touchdown, and then Les Miles tries to sub in 3 guys and is running the clock? If Tennessee doesn't commit that penalty, I think Les Miles is fired on Monday.
Check out our friends at Sports Treasures. I get to go by there today. Looking forward to that. If you're a member of Hooker's Corner, our Patreon page, if you can throw that link in the message board, I'd appreciate that, Caleb. And you can join today. We've got a. Oh, do you have it? You may not have it. We do have.
No, I'm saying I'll throw the link in the Patreon page. I'm getting it now. Sorry.
Perfect. All right. So you can join, and guess what we got this week? Thanks to our friends at Sports Treasures. We've got a Tony Vitello, not this week, this month. We've got a Tony Vitello autographed baseball. So we're looking forward to that, and then we'll give away a weekly gift. at the end of each and every week, which will be a t-shirt. So we've got a lot going on. Your opportunity to win stuff. You do have to be subscribed to the channel. So make sure you're subscribed. We'll check that, and then we'll hold a grand drawing a little bit later in the summer. But go ahead if you want to join the Hooker's Corner Patreon page. We'd love for you to do that. We'll have all kinds of content coming up there very shortly. And by the way, you're absolutely right. My guy here, Travis, says Happy Gilmore 2 will be good. It will.
No, it will not. No, it will not. It's not going to be good.
60
guys.
seconds. Not even. How about 30 seconds from Medicare? Misty will visit with her later in the program as well. And when we come back, the Big Ten's making a lot of cash. Should the SEC be worried? With Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
There you go, Caleb. The Big Ten's making a lot of cash. What's the deal with that? More than the SEC? How does that happen?
Yes, per a report by Daniel Levitt at Sportico, the Big Ten generated $880 million in revenue in fiscal year 2023, according to tax returns they obtained earlier by request. That overtakes the SEC as the highest earning conference, which is a big standout. As a matter of fact, the SEC was down at 853. So there's a $27 million difference. This is for the 2022-2023 season. Now, this is something I have been talking about for a while. This includes,
I'm going to give you some credit because I've disagreed with you on your take a lot.
Yes, this is just the 14 teams in the conference before Texas and Oklahoma were joining, or before USC and UCLA were joining the Big Ten. Okay. This is also, and this is a big thing now, guys, I want to point this out. This is before the media rights deals came out. So the Big Ten as a conference generated $27 million more in profit than the SEC. And both leagues are about to enter media rights deals that is only going to further favor the Big Ten, because the Big Ten has a $1 billion a year return on their TV rights deals compared to $300 million for the SEC. Now, yes, there's expenses and things like that, but the truth of the matter is, the Big Ten does have 2 more teams to disperse the revenue out next year, 18 to 16 for the SEC. But if you do the math real quick, and I'm going to do the math. I can't do the math in my head, so someone do it for me. Do 880 divided by 14 versus 853 divided by 14. And all I'm saying is the new difference with this media rights deal, even with 18 teams, the Big Ten will have more to give out per team, significantly so than the SEC. And guys, I'm telling you, that is a huge worry, because this is the great equalizer in college football. And here's why it's the equalizer. The SEC.
What is the great equalizer?
This money, this revenue. Okay, and I will explain why. The SEC has had the ingrained advantage for about 30 years now with recruiting, because the best players just come from the South. And honestly, they did before that. The best players come from Georgia, Florida, Alabama, Louisiana. Heck, per capita, Mississippi, too, is really good. And so that's where the best players have always come through. Now Texas, too, and South Carolina. The Deep South. Big Ten has had a couple of states, Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania. That's it. That's produced NFL talent, right? Those are the only states in the Big Ten that produce legit NFL talent. Even Illinois doesn't, despite the fact that Chicago's there, which has always kind of confused me. But that's a different story. So the Big Ten has had 3 states. They've had to try to out-recruit the SEC, and they can't because the SEC's there. The great equalizer becomes budgets to make an impact in recruiting, but then also NIL money. And because the Big Ten is going to start bringing in so much more revenue per team, they will not need to solicit NIL funds from their boosters as much as the SEC will. at which point the Big Ten will have more NIL money to out-recruit the SEC and SEC territory.
Okay, I need you to hold on for a second because this money is going to the schools. The money that goes to NIL for now comes from boosters. Now, if they flip it and the schools can pay them directly, that's different. But I still think the boosters, in terms of NIL, which would be the only concern of them making more money, I still think the boosters would fork over as much cash as any Big Ten team, don't you?
I think but that's the point, though. The Big Ten boosters, the boosters have to fork over some cash. The NIL money you get, I mean, not the NIL money, the direct revenue you get, ticket sales, TV, whatever you want to name it, the money you bring in, however much that is, that takes away from the money you need in donations from boosters to do things. That extra money that the boosters don't have to pay in donations for the school, they can use to go outright buy players. So let's call it what it is. These big schools in the Big Ten, even if their recruiting bases aren't as strong, their booster bases are as strong as the SEC. Is that fair to say?
Yes, it's very fair to say.
Yes. So the booster base is as strong, and their booster base now has more money to spend on NIL because the revenue from the Big Ten is going to supplement donations they would have had to make. Now, you're seeing this in a lot of ways. You're seeing the Big Ten really step up their game in trying to get coaches. 10 years ago, Dave, Luke Fickell, after what he did at Cincinnati when he went undefeated and took them to the college football playoff, 10 years ago, Luke Fickell's at an SEC school. There's no doubt. Cincinnati, going from Cincinnati, heck, Tennessee might hire him. They hired Butch Jones. Luke Fickell's down south somewhere. He is now at Wisconsin. Matt Rule, who had the most cutting-edge offense at Baylor, didn't work out in the NFL, but he's at Nebraska now. Y'all think I'm crazy. I still think Matt Rule is going to work out. The Big Ten is reaching a level where they can afford to get coaches and buy players with NIL talent. And another example of that is, look at Ohio State. They just brought on Chip Kelly as an assistant, and they opened the NIL checkbook. Guys, this is not changing anytime soon. I'm telling you guys, there is...
Are you telling me that you think within 5 or 10 years, the Big Ten will be the dominant conference in college football? As I just get my email for SEC Media Days credentials. Ironic, huh?
Sorry about that. What'd you say?
As I just got my email for SEC Media credentials.
Oh my gosh, that's really, really funny. And then we lost our connection.
Do you think
the SEC has an agenda to punish us?
Do you think the Big Ten will be better than the SEC in 5 and or 10 years?
I think in 10 years, you will see a significant gap between the Big Ten and the SEC. Overall, the Big Ten will be deeper with more powerhouse teams. Yes, I do.
Okay. I disagree with that because if it gets to that point where Greg Sankey has made a mistake on the contract, I think he's got time to fix it. And I think he'll be able to fix it. How long does the SEC television contract run till?
That's the other problem. The SEC television contract is 10 years. The Big Ten's going to renegotiate in 7.
Yeah,
and they already have twice the deal the SEC has. I mean, this is why.
But can you renegotiate those halfway through? Surely.
Why would ESPN renegotiate it? ESPN has a very bad business model right now that's going to kill the company. This SEC contract is their lifeline. They got to steal with the SEC contract because the SEC is going to bring in way more money, particularly with adding Texas and Oklahoma. This is going to literally save the network.
Yeah.
So ESPN has no incentive to renegotiate.
Yeah, I'm going to go with no offense, Caleb, but what Smoky Mountain Red said.
That's crazy.
I just don't see that happening. I don't see the Big Ten being bigger than the SEC, partly because what Travis said, the Big Ten doesn't have the same level of fan support or tradition. So
says who? Who says that? I mean, guys, Nebraska sold out their football stadium for a volleyball game last year.
Ouch. Well, that's pretty good. I'll give them that. Still, I'm going to take the SEC in the next 5 to 10 years over the Big Ten. We shall see, but the TV deal is something we shall ask Greg Sankey about at SEC Media Days in Dallas in about 7 weeks. We're almost there. We're joined by a very special guest who is nice enough to be a supporter of the program, an advertiser here, and just does an awesome job. out of Chattanooga. Medicare Misty joins us now. How are you, Medicare Misty?
Doing great. Good morning. How are y'all?
Never better. Talking sports, so that's a pretty fun gig.
Well, and I heard you say as you're taking SEC over the Big Ten. Woo!
Absolutely. My guy Caleb is. Now, tell us about your allegiances. Well, you're a pretty big sports fan as well.
I'm a big sports fan. We're from Oklahoma, so Sooners are becoming SEC this year. So we're going to finally be able to put the rumor of that we're only good because we don't play anybody to rest. So we're going to come to show and hopefully go home big with some big numbers again.
I like that. Misty, tell me what service you provide for those out there that might need to make some adjustments to what they do in the coverage of the older ones in their family.
Sure. So I do Medicare insurance, which is for people that are 65 or older, or if they're disabled, they can get Medicare disability. So I help them get the drug plan, the supplement plan, or the advantage plan that has both of them kind of in one plan. Your whole life, if you're working for an employer, your decisions are made for you. So when you retire, all these options are available, and it's just kind of overwhelming. Like, how do I do this? How do I pick this? How do I know what's right? Who's going to cover my insurance? And how do I know to pick a plan? Because for so long, it's been done for them. So I try to make it simple. I'm in license now 40 states. Goal is to be 50, and I've got about 40 agents around helping them to do the same thing, make their Medicare simple.
Nice. And there's no charge with you. That's one of the most incredible parts about it. You provide that service with no charge to the customer.
Exactly. Yeah, it's already hard enough on them. We get paid through the carriers. So whichever plan that they choose, that's how we get paid. They don't have to it's a free consultation to see if the plan they have now is, the right plan for them. There's a lot of network changes going on in Chattanooga. So a lot of people are upset they may not be able to see their hospital. So call me if you're one of those people that need that help.
Travis says he can't wait to retire in 2037. So we got you one down the line, but we'll get you some older ones. We tend to trend a little bit older. Misty, thank you so much. We're excited to work with you. Have a blessed rest of your day. Anything else you would like to add? How do people get a hold of you?
MedicareMisty.com is my website. It's got my phone number. You can fill out a form and we can call you back. Or if you want to call our office number, it's on there also. Or if you have a quick question, you just want to email us, you can do that or pick up the phone, whichever way is easier. I'd love to have you. And I'm excited about partnering with you, especially because I love sports, and I'm excited to see where you go. Your website is absolutely amazing. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for reaching out.
You're a sweetheart. Thank you. We appreciate it, Misty.
Have a good one.
Awesome. MedicareMisty.com. I mean, she does all that and she doesn't charge you anything. It's pretty awesome. For Caleb Calhoun, I'm Dave Hooker. Tomorrow on the program, we will visit with Jimmy Himes. We always love to do that with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation